Welcome to the new season of Love Thy Number. I am so excited to share stories from people who are loving the gift of their own Enneagram numbers. I'm Danae King. I'm a Type 7, and I'm so happy to host this conversation with you. Good morning. It's just me this time, just Danae. But I wanted to talk to you a bit about numbers. I do a podcast called Love Thy Number, and it's dedicated to loving our Enneagram number, but I guarantee you there's a number that you do not love. So, for instance, what am I talking about? Okay, I do this podcast, and I'm not proud to admit it, but like most podcasters, I assume, we check our stats. We want to know how many downloads, how many people are listening. Isn't that what matters, that we grow and grow? And yet, every month, my downloads continue to grow. More and more people are listening. And I'm still worried that it's not enough. Because I begin comparing myself to, oh my gosh, other people, I know they're growing faster. And then there's Instagram. And I find myself looking at how many followers I have. And then the worst thing is I begin comparing myself to people who do things that are not at all like what I do, like fashion bloggers or food bloggers or people who have these massive followings and people are liking. And then I'm like, well, what do I need to do to get my numbers up? And like people are watching TV shows, massive numbers of people are watching TV shows that they just seem to perpetuate that we're not good enough in a million different ways. So I know I'm not alone. This is what we do. We compare ourselves to others all the time, right? Why do we do that? How many followers, how many likes, unique downloads? Oh my gosh, let me tell you, those numbers will do a number on you. You hear what I did there? So anyway, I just want to tell a couple of stories. I was in my car this week, and I turned on my favorite morning radio show here in Atlanta, and the crew were talking about, well, mainly it was the main host, and he was talking about how he obsesses over weighing himself every morning, and that he's been doing this for like 10 years. And so he gets on the scale, and there's a certain number he has in mind. And we become obsessed with that one number. And he said, I know that a certain weight does not equal good health, but yet he couldn't not get on those scales every morning. And so the reason it was even coming up was he's trying to break the habit, go 30 days without checking the scales in the morning. And the whole conversation was around that, and others agreed, and one of the crew was like, nope, I gave that up years ago. I know how I feel. I do not look at those scales every morning because what? That number has the power to either validate you or send you spiraling downwards. So I got to thinking about that. What number validates us? Is it our stats on social media? Is it our weight, our age, size of our paycheck? All of these things either validate us, or the exact same thing that makes us feel satisfied about where we are in life has the power to just create a world of anxiety for us. And so I got to thinking about this title, and because when I came, well, I'm going to tell you a story in just a minute. I was gone for a week. And when I came back, of course, it's like, I just need to check what's going on in the world of social media. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if I knew that I had the power to just make a difference in one person's life? And guess what? Maybe that one person is me, because I truly believe when you take, I don't want to use the word control, but when you value, that's the word I mean. When you value your own life and your own personal growth, then that makes a change or helps others in their life too. We don't seem to realize the power we have in just growing our own life and what that does, putting the energy out into the world. You can use whatever, phrase you want, but I do believe we make a difference one at a time, and that one starts with us. And so that is why I titled this Love Thy Number. It starts with loving ourselves. But let me share. So I got a message, an email from a girl who was a guest on this podcast several months ago. And I'll let you know, it was Sammy, because Sammy has an amazing story. She's an incredible woman, but we did a two-part series because you could not get this story in one 30-minute podcast. She was very open, very honest about her story of sexual abuse, and it was incredibly painful. So, she told me that after that, and it's been several months, but it was like, I shared that. Did it make a difference? Should I have been so open about this? And then she got an email from a girl, and I have no idea who it is. It's not my business. Sammy didn't tell me. Who contacted her and said, I heard your story. And because Sammy shared her story, this one woman contacted her for help. Now, do you believe that you, in sharing your story, has the potential, the power to change someone else's life path, or just to have somebody reach out for help? That's the thing, is the numbers are very deceiving. And so because of what she did, she has helped one. And if you haven't heard those podcasts, I really encourage you to go back and listen to them. If you're someone who has been in that position, if you've suffered sexual abuse, or if you know someone who has, I just encourage you, not for the sake of the numbers of people that listen to my podcast, but honestly, you just never know who might truly need to hear this story. So they're entitled An Enneagram 7, Story of Sexual Abuse. It's a part 1 and part 2. So you can go back and listen to those at any time. So I love that number. I love that her one story has helped one person. So what I also wanted to talk about was I went out to San Francisco last week for a training course on coaching with the Enneagram. And it was fantastic. I could spend the rest of this show just talking about that, because there were people from all over the world. Literally, in our class of 24, we had people from London and France and Israel. And what I was just fascinated by was that our Enneagram type is the same no matter where you're from. Israel, the U.S. So it was just a beautiful display of our unity alongside our diversity. But that's not what I wanted to get to. What I wanted to get to was, on my way home, I scheduled a Lyft to take me to the airport. So let me describe my Lyft driver, first of all. So I get in the car. He comes out and helps me with my suitcase. And I noticed him. He was, youngish guy, 30s. And he had on a cool hat, cool jacket. I could see that he had tattoos all over his hands. He had those big earrings that gauge, where the big holes in your ear. And just really, I don't know what to say what he looked like. He just looked like a really cool guy. But anyway, so we were getting in the car and starting on the trip. And he goes, this is so cool. He said, I put it out into the universe this morning that I wanted a passenger that I picked up in the city who needed to go to the airport. He said, within minutes, I got your request. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. In my mind, I said that because I can tell you when I was his age, I would not have used the phrase, I put it out into the universe, right? That was just not a language that I was familiar with when in my 30s. So anyways, at some point in the conversation, he did tell me he was 36. And so I cannot tell you the entire conversation because I forgot the exact words, but more like that language of it. He said, oh, I believe in the law of attraction, and you just put out, say what it is you want. And so he started telling me, he said, recently I just quit my job that I had for 15 years because I was putting in all this time and work for somebody else who I really realized at the end of the day did not care about me at all. He said, so I just said, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want? He said, and I thought, I have that right to just say, what is it I need for me? And of course, we had an entire conversation about that because that was right up my alley of absolutely what you think about, you bring about, I said, and told him this has been my conversation with my kids and with other people that I believe you have the power to call into your life what it is you're supposed to be doing. So anyway, needless to say, it was a great conversation. But we got to the airport. Oh, and the reason he wanted it was because he had not been a Lyft driver all that long. He said for about a month, and he was not familiar with all the areas of the San Francisco airport. So he was like, man, I really need a passenger who I can just become more familiar with the airport. So we get there, we get out of the car, and he's helping me with my luggage. And there this guy stood, and he just put his arms out, to his side, extended his arms, and he was like, you seem like the kind of person who's a hugger. Can I give you a hug? And I was like, well, absolutely. So, Polly, if you're listening to this, you got this, you got it. So I just felt like that connection with this one person was that validation that, yes, we can encourage one person at a time. Our one life makes a difference to one other person. And I know there's that old saying, one person may not change the world, but you have the power to change one person, and that changes their world. I totally got that quote wrong, but you get the point, is we have this power to affect generations. And I can tell you, like with Sammy and her story, if she helped break the cycle of abuse, then her one story affected generations to come. Now, do you believe that? Because it's true. We have the power in our one life to affect generations that come after us. Our love to one child has the power to change the way they process their life and therefore change the generations that come after them. This is why I love the teaching community. They work with one child at a time, and they affect that child's life. They have the power to. A good teacher who cares about each child has the power to affect generations to come. So, in conclusion of this show today, more than ever, I just want to say, I hope you get to truly understand and love who you are by loving your number, whatever that number may be. I love you all. Thank you.